Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We first wish to acknowledge and honor the land on which we stand as that of the Lenape people. And with that, welcome you to the presentation of the film Antonio and Piti, produced by the Video Nas Aldeias Collective, co-directed by Vincent Carelli and Wiwito Piaco of the Ashaninka, who unfortunately and unexpectedly cannot be with us here today. So Vincent is right here with us, though Wiwito could not arrive. We're presenting this as part of the Environmental Justice, Belief Systems, and Aesthetic Experiences in Latin America and the Caribbean Working Group, located in the Center for the Study of Social Difference, which is the main financial support for this presentation today. But it also intersects with another series called the Audibility Series, financed by the Society of Fellows and the Heyman Center for the Humanities. Other people who have supported this project today are the Department of Music, the Center for Ethnomusicology, the Center for the Study of Ethnicity and Race, the Center for the Study of Social Difference, Institute of Latin American Studies, School of the Arts, and the Society of Fellows and the Heyman Center for the Humanities. We are also particularly grateful to the School of the Arts, Dean Carol Becker, Gavin Browning, Marcel Forrest for such a great collaboration during this Year of the Water and for this wonderful space that we have here. Several members of the group of Environmental Justice are here today. My colleague Ron Gregg from Film and Media Studies, graduate student Maria Fantinato from Music, and Esther Imperio as well, part of the group. Other members of that group and the faculty include Vicky Murillo from Political Science and Alex Albero from Art History. So I welcome everybody. Thank you for coming here. My colleague, our colleague in the group, Maria Fantinato, will present the people here today. It's of course an honor to have Vincent Carelli with us, and Maria Fantinato will present him and our other guest, Esther Imperio, as well.
Hello everyone, thank you all for being here. We are very honored to be screening this film, Antonio and Piti, tonight, and also very honored to have Vincent Carelli here with us, who's an important ally of indigenous peoples in Brazil, who has dedicated decades of his life to indigenous culture and political projects. Vincent Carelli is a filmmaker and activist who in 1986 created Video Nas Aldeias, translated as Video in the Villages, a film school for indigenous peoples who works closely with indigenous communities to provide video production training, annual workshops for video makers in regional locations, equipment access and post-production support, and international distribution of their work. Carelli has made a series of documentaries about the impacts of this work. A Arca dos Zoé, translated as The Meeting of the Ancestors, his best-known film, received several awards, among them in the Tokyo Festival and in the Cinema do Réel Festival in Paris. The trilogy, O Espírito da TV, A Arca do Zoé, and Eu Já Fui Seu Irmão, was screened on a series of public televisions around the world and at MoMA in New York City. In 1999, Carelli received the UNESCO Award for Respect for Cultural Diversity and the Search for Inter-Ethnic Peace Relations. And in 2000, he produced the series Índios no Brasil, 10 videos for TV Escola of Brazil, Ministry of Education. The series was distributed in public schools and also shown regularly on public TV channels. In 2009, the NGO Video Nas Aldeias, who is the producer of this film we're going to watch, received the Order of Cultural Merit from the Brazilian government, and his film Corumbiara, about the massacre of isolated Indians in Rondônia, won the top award for Best Film at the Festival de Cinema de Gramado, as well as awards in several national and international festivals. Martírio, from 2016, which is the second film in this trilogy, traces the historical path of the Guarani Kaiowá genocide in Mato Grosso do Sul, Brazil, For those who have not seen that film yet, I highly recommend that you watch it. It's a very sensitive and politically sharp documentary, which teaches a lot to its viewers. And in 2017, Carelli received the Prince Claus Award in the Netherlands due to his militancy for indigenous cinema. I want to emphasize that these are extremely complicated and risky times for indigenous peoples in Brazil. I mean, they have always been, but they're worse. And as well as for their allies, right? So screening this film and having Vincent here tonight is a very special occasion. And I thank you all for coming all the way from Recife, Brazil, to be here with us tonight, Vincent. And thank you again, all of you, for being here to share this experience with us. After this screening, we have a Q&A between Vincent and Esther. And I would like to present Esther to you as well. Esther Hamburger, who is here with us. She's a professor in the School of Communication and Arts of University of São Paulo, where she has coordinated the Laboratory of Audiovisual Investigation and Critique, LAICA, and served as the chair of the Department of Film, Radio, and Television. With a PhD in anthropology from the University of Chicago, she has recently been a Thinker Visiting Scholar, professor at the School of the Arts and ILAS, Columbia University, and a visiting scholar at Harvard University's David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies. In 2016, she was a visiting professor at the Center for Latin American Studies, Screen Arts Communication, where she taught a graduate course, Wired Up to the World, Performance, Film and Television in Contemporary Brazil. In 2006, her book, O Brasil Antenado, A Sociedade da Novela, Tune Brazil, the Telenovela Society, was nominated for the Jabuti National Book Prize, Câmara Brasileira do Livro. She has also published many essays in scholarly journals on topics such as the cultural politics of the telenovela, portrayals of youth in contemporary Brazilian film and television, filmic expressions of urban violence in contemporary cinema, women, blacks, and Northeasterners in the media. For 15 years, she wrote a weekly column on film and television for Brazilian newspaper Folha de São Paulo, and she is currently the president of Kino Forum, the association that promotes the São Paulo International Short Film Festival and the Kino Forum audiovisual workshops. So, welcome everyone. I hope you stay for the Q&A and the screening, after the screening. And Vincent's gonna talk a little bit about the film itself. Thank you for coming.
Well, welcome everybody. Maria already told a lot about the video in the village, and just a few words about this film. After 2 films about genocide, this is a love story. It's about a person like myself that are in between 2 cultures, and you know, the Shaninka case, because of this marriage between a white woman with an indigenous leader, you know, all the kids that came out of this marriage have a special role in terms of options of sustainable forests. They are political, regional, political plan, and they are executing it to share with the traditional population around their reservation, and also a great influence among the Ashaninga in the Peru to preserve the sacred sites in Peru. So they are leading a very special movement, very innovative movement, and they are a special rare case in Brazil of really successful experience. So this film is also an homage to this woman, and you will know her in the film. Enjoy the film. Thank you.
Once again, let's thank Vincent, for being here and sharing this film. Before I turn it over to Esther, could you talk about the process of shooting and editing the film? And somehow the video in the village seems so present here because everybody seems comfortable with the camera. It's almost sitting in their laps. It's so present. They interact with you. They cut you off. But you're also drawing upon an archive material that actually is spliced into the film to represent history. So I take it that that's also part of past films that have been made. And the sense of training that seems to be present when it's the sons that come to you about making the film, you know, about their parents and this history. So again, I wondered if you could just talk about that.
Sure. Well, we start with the video workshops among the Ashaninka in '88, and Webito was not chosen for the workshop, but he was always there. And in the second workshop, Webito took the camera during a break and wrote such beautiful images. So, come on, Webito, you are in the workshop. So, all this, for 2 decades, 2-3 decades, we worked with them, and we produced several films with them, and especially in this, the environmental issue. And this is their great contribution, regional contribution, and even national contribution. You know, it's very important for them. But I was always admiring this woman and the story of this marriage. And so after a long time, I decided to make it with them. So Webito is my partner in this. Many parts were filmed by him, especially the election, so well shot, and with all this, you know, but Piti was very shy because of her personal history, you know. She was treated by the village as a betrayer, you know, the white, you know. She took the party of the indigenous people, and even against her own family. When they did the demarcation, her own family had to leave the land. And what is interesting is that since she was a child, she would admire the beauty of the Ashaninka people, you know. And some of her sisters, you know, was very afraid of the Indians and scared by them, and she had always this attraction for diversity, and well, this is and the film was shot in a lot of years, you know, but I never had her personal testimony, and it took her 8 years to decide to speak to me and to tell her story. And so I did all the things around with family, but I had not her statements. And one day I came to the village, and they were in the city standing on the line for the health care, public health care, and they had a suspicion that Antonio had a prostate cancer. And I was so I called them at night. I said, well, how much you need to go to a private doctor? So I gave them the money. And PT was like, wow, she called me. Wow, my God, thank you so much for that. And the next time I came to the village, she called me and said, oh, you helped me. Now I'm going to help you. So you can come, I will tell you my story. So there are footage from 88 to 2016, you know, and we could put all this together, and finally, when I got the PT statement, well, now you have the film. It's very rare in Brazil to see a white woman marrying an Indian, you know. The colonial tradition is that all the men that came in the country would take indigenous women to marry. It was even a state policy, you know, to stimulate that, you know, and always to take the woman out of their culture, out of their community. So PT is such a different case, very interesting. And all the children, you know, are very special. You know, Bebito, the filmmaker, Moisés, the shaman, the Benki is a kind of pop star in the environmental movement, and Isaac made this accomplishment to be the Indian mayor of a white village. And the women also, but they were so shy and so nervous to give me the statement that they are not in the film. So,
Esther.
It's great to have Vincent here talking about this film that started in 1988, and it started with Vídeo nas Aldeias, and it ended a couple of years ago, and it's a 2019 film. Vídeo nas Aldeias somehow is part of this 30 years of democracy that we had in Brazil, and we had so much inclusion and so much diversification of our cultural scene. And Video in the Villages, I think it's a very good example of the things that happened in Brazil. And this Ashaninka group and the things they're doing in the forest, they're very avant-garde things, like they could be teaching us, right, how to live together, to use Bart's expression, in the 21st century, and how to deal with nature. So that's part of the reasons why we decided to bring this film, and I'm very glad to be here to be able to talk with Vincent about it. And one of the things about Vincent's films with the Vídeo nas Aldeias, and that has to do with this kind of collective way of filming, is that the films take a long time to be made. They start and then they stop, and then they start and then they stop, and then as a result, in the end, you have contemporary footage mixed with archive footage, like of his own archive, of the archive of Vídeo nas Aldeias. And in this film, besides Vídeo nas Aldeias, you have Werner Herzog's footage of Fitzcarraldo. I don't know if you noticed, like this very short fragment of Herzog's film as an illustration of P.T.'s imagination of the Ashaninka a long time ago. And we've been talking about the archives of the Vídeo nas Aldeias project, and Vincent can talk a little about that. But also, I would like you to talk a little about the archives on your own films, how your films are also archive films of your own archives.
Well, I'm just coming from a 2-week experience among the Enauene people in North Mato Grosso. And we started filming them in the late 80s. So now we are in the movement of repatriating the footage we did in the past to every single people we documented. And from the Enauene, we had like 320 hours of footage along 3 decades. And decided to bring all this footage back to the village, and it was a fascinating experience. Also bringing the workshop, giving them cameras, computers to keep filming themselves. And it was amazing how in 1 decade the young people didn't knew anything about the canoes. I said, wow, they use canoes. My father, my grandfather, and they are tough time, paddling. Because they were born after, when the iron made boats and the motors, and so it's unbelievable that how the memory is very quickly, they are suffering such a quick new style of life, And an old woman came to me and said, well, in her language, and asked a guy to translate me. And so she was saying, well, I've seen my husband in these images and I cried a lot. But it's okay, it's such a long time now, he became a spirit. So it's okay, I can watch it. And testimonies like that, and I'm doing this with the major people I've shot along these 3 decades.
Was it hard to finance? I mean, did you need the money to buy the equipment, to maintain the equipment, to edit? I mean, all of the sequence that we go through and sort of filming and editing and distributing the films. How did you sort of maintain this for 30 years?
Well, we started with international cooperation because, I've been working with Indians for the last 40, 50 years. And we started with, I worked for the state protection service for 2 years too. And it was the time of the old military dictatorship, and then we created an NGO. And the Video in the Village only existed because of the support of the international cooperation. So we were dealing with land demarcation, we were supporting the traditional leaders. The state would hire fake leaders that had in perspective to be turned into white people, and we were sponsoring the elders that had a resistant project. So for 18 years we only worked with the international cooperation, and suddenly the Lula's government came in, and Gilberto Gil, the singer, became the Minister of Culture, and they started a revolution in terms of funding culture in Brazil. And then video in the village was discovered in Brazil. So, wow, that's the kind of work we would like to support. We don't want to invent anything, you know, just give people the money for the popular culture, for the hip-hop culture in the big cities, and for the first time in Brazil, sponsoring indigenous projects.
So we can continue.
Vincent,
Yeah,
how
Esther.
did you start to make films?
Well, long time ago, Brazilian Italian filmmakers came to CTI, the Center for the ONG we had to support the indigenous people, and he wanted to make a project between people, communication. Andrea Tonati, a well-known experimental filmmaker in Brazil.
There will be an exhibit, a retrospective of his work at the Anthology Film Archives this year. I don't know exactly when. Andrea Tonacci.
So at that time, you know, video was just starting. You know, it was the black and white tapes, and finally the experiment didn't happen. You know, really, we did with him a 16mm film with the Timbira. But I kept the idea, you know, and 10 years later, when the VHS happened, and I think it was a global movement, the popular appropriation of the, you know, cheapest machine to produce image, and I started then in '86 to shoot myself and to shoot and show in the village, and this would generate world feedback and recreation, revival of things that were lost or almost lost, you know. And I would go to one people to another, people that I would have worked with before, that I knew, and each one would appropriate the camera and the image production on their own way, on their own purposes.
It's interesting that he's referring to, since his first film called the Girls' Celebration, which is about a poverty ritual in a Nyambiquara village. He shot this ritual, and then he showed the ritual to the people there. So the film was about shooting the ritual and then showing the material, the footage, to the people who were in the film, and shooting their reaction to what they saw. And then they asked him to shoot them again because they thought that they were not traditional enough. So they kind of reinvented their tradition to be filmed again, and then they performed this Mayo ritual that they hadn't performed for 20 years, right? And so there's a way in which the documentary is about the indigenous culture as much as it is about their relationship to images and to their images and here we see again the same kind of dispositive, if you want, when they go around with the footage by where you shot Koló years earlier, right? And you use those images in order to bring the discussion about the mixed family. So it's very interesting the way in which the film is about the work is about the relationship to image, and that I think it works with a very alive concept of culture. Like culture is not this traditional dead thing. It's something that it's very alive and it's reinventing itself on the way. So I'm more making a comment here than asking a question. But does it make sense what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, I love that. I was going to say, I'm happy to open the conversation if somebody has a question. I want to make sure that we get your questions and we can continue to talk through the questions. Does anybody have something? Yes, here in the center.
Sorry, he had his hand up. That's okay.
Sorry.
Hi. I enjoy the film a lot. And I wonder where can people see this film? So I'm talking about this distribution, because we are a few privileged people here. What about other people? I am a Colombian anthropologist, Colombian from Colombia, South America, and yes, in Colombia there are so many struggles. And many things horrible things are happening there in terms of indigenous societies and indigenous leaders being shot at every day. So I wonder how your film, like this one, where can we get it?
Well, we have a VOD platform called Video nas Aldeias on Vimeo, so you can see it there in Spanish, in English, in French, in Portuguese, in Ashaninka.
You can buy or rent, and then there's in the tool symbol, you click there and you choose the language.
And there is a long film called Martyrdom about the genocide of Guarani Kaiowá. It's always free.
Yes.
You made reference at the very end, just a capsule of some violence and some pushback. Could you elaborate on that? I'm curious as to what the follow-through was. At the very end of the film, the subtitles. Mm-hmm. And there was also one reference, as I recall, in the film to the issue of drugs. Is drug trade, drug violence a problematic for this area? Thank you.
Yes, after the election of Isaac, of course, many people, the old politicians, are trying to impeach him all the time. I myself came once, and Isaac was staying home and said, well, you should go to the assembly, and they are trying to impeach me for the third time. So, and so they have on the other border of the river, they have this big project, which is a school for environmental issues, and they were planning to build a fabric to use the fruits from the forest and to process that to sell. And then somebody fired everything, and they have lost all the projects. And so there is always a movement from the traditional politicians to take over, you know. But, you know, the election of Isaac was built along a several years. Isaac was a teacher. He is married with a woman from Marechal, from the villa, and he taught there for many years. And once I came to the village, and he was bringing like 50 students each time with the teachers from Marechal Thaumaturgo to live a weekend in the village. So he worked on this, building this bridge for a long time, you know. And he's a guy very sincere, very honest. So he was able, you know, to build a popular movement to support and to elect him. And well, but you know, now he has no party because the party where he was elected wanted to money from the education to elect himself, the politician, and said, oh no, I don't do this kind of thing. So he has no party now, but he is going to try to be re-elected. But all the film is about violence, because all the history of PT. First of all, the problem is with our family, our mom and dad. They had to admit, but never really accepted the marriage. So all was very difficult.
What about the issue of drugs? There was
Well, this is the border with Peru, and there is a lot of drug thing going on, you know.
Here we've got a question here, sir.
The mention of the church as just an occasion that was casually entered into, but there was seemed to be no real connection to the Western religion. I didn't see any indication of a native religion. They seem to have no value system, no connection with an outside power that gave them existence. There was no origin story. There was no current practice that I noticed in the activities during the film. Have they lost both opportunities? Have they lost their native religion, their native value system, and just had this sort of enforced connection with the church to?
Well, PT is from a very Christian family, and she kept her own identity, you know, and she's. But you have seen the ayahuasca thing. They are drinking ayahuasca, and when they are singing, they are calling the spirits. That's their religion, you know. And I love so much those music that said, well, could I use more of that music in other parts of the film? And Isaac said, well, I don't think it's a good idea, because if you put too much of this kind of music, it will be hard for herself to see it, because the music calls the spirits all the time. So I use it in the ayahuasca section, but not in the, you know, that's their religion, you know, they are connected with this, the spirits of the forest. Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thank you, Ron and Esther, for doing this and taking your time, and thank you, Vincent, for coming here and making the film and make it available for us. I have a question for you, Vincent. I find myself, I'm an image maker and I work with socially engaged issues, and I often find myself in a situation where there is a line, a very thin line between where I am and where the space for the narrative that comes from the person, the subject, or the, you know, the people that I'm working with. And I was wondering, how do you work that line, and how is it for you, you know, being a foreigner to that land, being there, but also being part of the story in a way, and how to navigate that even ethically, because that's a situation that I find myself and I encounter myself very frequently, and I don't know how to solve it. So that's why I have that question for you. And how do you see yourself as, in this situation, and where, you know, it is important for the story to be told, it is important for it to be out, but and sometimes I feel that I am here, like in Colombia, being able to tell the stories I tell. At the same time, I'm speaking on behalf of other people, but I'm not them. So I wonder, you know, that's a very personal question in terms of, you know, how
No,
do you navigate
this
that?
is a big issue in Brazil right now. I think the secret is time, you know. From where do I speak? From a guy who is a friend, which is a supporter, but never crosses the line in taking the, speaking for them, you know. You have to understand what is your role and position, you know. And I think the secret is, it took me a life to get to this this kind of relationship with them, you know. Webito is like a brother for me, you know. It's something that will come with, you know, with some decades. You know, people, you build friendship relations, you know, along the years. It takes time, you know, because a lot of people come to the village, disappear, and, you know, others come, and but if you keep coming and coming and coming, at a certain point, you get an intimacy. You build an intimacy with people, you know, that they don't discriminate you as a foreigner anymore, you know. You are kind of part of it.
Thank you for a beautiful film. I really loved it. Thank you for a beautiful film. I loved it. I wonder if you could say something about the fact that Video in the Villages was always against this idea that Indians would be contaminated by technology, and it was always media friendly, and how savvy the Native movement, indigenous leaders are about the media. So Sonia Guajajara goes on the Hassan Minhaj Patriot Act show. She appears with Alicia Keys at Rock in Rio. They go to the Vatican. So they're very media friendly and never paralyzed by the idea of being pure of technology. The other thing, I was really struck by your comment about how rare PT is. And if you look at the official ideology, it's all about the Iracema, Paraguaçu, It's not about, it's as if Cecilia married Peri in Guarani, right? So all the tradition of literature and a lot of the films are about the Iracema, the European man with the indigenous woman.
Yes, sir.
Well, I found myself too ignorant to know about the history of the region there, and I wonder whether to show such a movie in the United States, it wouldn't be smart to have some kind of outline of what happens actually, what happens in the background, and what happens to these people. Besides my feeling ignorant about this, I just have never seen a movie in which all the actors were so damn beautiful. I've never seen a movie where all these people are so beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I was wondering if you could speak a bit, elaborate a bit on what are the other occasions for which people perform music in these communities, and what sort of connection does music have for them?
Music, is it only in the ceremonies that they perform it, or are there other times?
Okay. When you have the ayahuasca, it's a specific music. And then you have the drums and the flutes, and this is for the feasts to enjoy. And so they have different kinds of music for the different contexts. That was the question?
So thank you. I also very much enjoyed the film, and I'm also a filmmaker, and it gives me a number of things to reflect on. I guess my question maybe kind of piggybacks a little bit on a previous comment. I wonder who you think about as your audience for this film, and maybe multiple audiences, because, you know, as the other person who commented earlier said, he feels ignorant, he wishes he had background. On the other hand, clearly you have a commitment to returning footage and showing this film back to the community that helped you make it. And I wonder, you know, you said one of your films about a genocide is free online, so you have a sense of wanting to provide that to a wider audience, maybe in a sense of wanting to provide activism or documentation of histories that otherwise would be covered and tried to be erased. So I just wonder, who do you think of as your different audiences for the film, and how do you balance the representations that you are presenting?
I think each different films have a different kind of audiences. This film was made for her family, and Xanica is so well known in Brazil and in many parts of the world, and I think it was important to show how this happens, you know.
Where the energy comes from.
Yes, yes. But most of my films, my first audience is themselves, the Indians, you know. How looking at that past would make the new generation think about things that are happening now. You know, now I'm doing a film also, which I started in '86 with the Gavião, and using the old footage. I've seen an interview with a friend of mine, a Gavião guy, saying we are going to lose our language because the younger are not listening to us and the elders are dying. In 2019, he gave me another interview saying, we have lost our language. And all the other Indians make fun of us. They say, the Gavião paint themselves, but they don't speak. And that's the shame for them. And if the new generation could think about those things and really, I think some of them have awareness of that and are trying hard to step back and recover the language. So my first audience is the community itself. It's where I put an accent more into this or to that. It's always thinking about how they will react to the film, and so. But then a film like Martyrdom about the contemporary genocide happening some kilometers from São Paulo, and was for a huge audience, and it was shocking. People were shocked by the genocide itself, but also realizing how they don't know the real history of Brazil, and especially the Brazilian history in respect with the indigenous people. There is a total ignorance about that, and many people were shocked by that, their own ignorance. And so those films were for a broader audience, and where the film was shown in regular cinemas in Brazil. But Antônio Ipiti is a film, it's not a kind of film that festival would like, So, but Video in the Village is so well known in Brazil right now, so I'm not even sending the film for festivals and just put it on the VOD, and people would find it easily.
Last question here. Yeah.
I would add that Corumbiara, which can also be found in this Vimeo, Video nas Aldeias, or Video in the Village? The Vimeo. Video nas Aldeias. It's also about another genocide, and it's like for a while a white pub, and if you have a chance, I recommend it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on that question of the audience. I'm also an anthropologist working in Colombia, and I don't know that specific place where you did the film, but I felt familiar with a lot of the things that happen in the movie. It's not just a love story, but many different things that your movie can talk about. And I work mainly in the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta in the north of Colombia, and there was a struggle to become mayor of a young man, and his mom is white and his dad is Indian, so it was very sort of similar story. She used to be a missionary, and she left the order and then got into the community and had a son, and the son wants to win the election, but he didn't win as in your movie. But I think there are many things that would be interesting for the communities. I guess you're right, it's not a film that can get a big audience, but in communities, not just those of the Amazon, I think people can think about what's going on with their life, the complexities of those choices, the family with the different sons and daughters doing different things. I think it resonates to a lot of the things that are going on in indigenous communities in the whole of South America. So I guess it'd be great to get the film in the communities and get people talking, because this story that you have here is a story that takes place not in the same way exactly, but same sort of things going on.
Let's
Great.
thank Vincent. Yeah, here, let's thank you for coming.
Thank you.